Yeah, I mean, you kind of got it. You kind of want to start out and kind of talk
Yeah,
about
yeah. So,
your career.
I graduated journalism, electronic media, on the visual track back in '06, and
I graduated in 2015 with a journalism electronic media degree, but I had a minor in cinema studies, which I don't think they offered when you were there, but
I think I was like one class away from having a minor, and just could not be bothered to do it, and
nice.
regret it now. But so started Lock and Key maybe I guess in 2011. Had done freelance shooting, editing, directing. Bunch of companies around town, agency work, stuff like that. And now our company currently has 18 full-time employees, and a few paid interns, and a whole bunch of freelancers that we use regularly. And so, when we were first, starting the company, it was sort of Knoxville was a very different kind of production market. I'm sure most of you know by now that the then Scripps Networks, then Discovery Networks, and now Warner Brother Discovery Networks are here in town. So there's always been a good amount of that work, and there's also a lot of true crime by way of Jupiter Entertainment and River and a few other companies. So, when I graduated school, everything was very much you had one role and that was it. And I didn't really want to just edit or just shoot or just do audio or whatever. And so was kind of got my start around that time of the DSLR revolution and the one man band thing becoming more prominent. And so we really just built a team of people who don't want to do one thing and want to kind of keep it fun and mix it up, and not have it become this big monotonous mess that we see so many people who are in more traditional roles, the stuff they go through. So we've been very proud to grow this thing over the years, and have a pretty massive client list at this point, and are just kind of doing projects all over the place. So I know that one of the things that we see a lot of is people who are trying to come work for us. And so Andy's constantly trying to find new talent on the festival world, and finding people who can do really fun, innovative stuff, and people who are just highly creative. So he's kind of looking at things with a little bit of a different scope, a different lens than I am. We get, I mean, we probably have 20 plus applicants a week easily. And so most of the time, if they don't have a reel, that's, while we certainly have certain types of roles here where, you may not necessarily need to be out shooting and editing and creating in that way. Reels are a pretty important part of the way we are able to identify talent. And, I know that I probably shouldn't be saying this in a UT affiliated, program here, but a lot of times we care a whole lot more about what you can do than what your grades were like. I mean, I think you should still try and get good grades, and we look at UT as being a great way to learn to be an adult and learn how to be responsible, and the networking, and just the opportunity to check out gear, and just to be connected with people who are actively trying to help you become a professional. That is of a huge value. But at the end of the day, we really just want to see what you can do. And there was a time when the barrier of entry to actually make something pretty was pretty big, and where in order to get that shallow depth of field, and in order to make something really impressive, it required a lot of expensive equipment. And fortunately now that's no longer the case. So we kind of look at that from a standpoint of nobody really has an excuse. Like, if you want to make stuff and you want to shoot and you want to create pretty images and tell stories, then you kind of have the means to do that. I realized, and especially, as your students, you have equipment you can check out, you have, editing software you can get your hands on. So it's sort of, the onus is kind of on y'all to do that and to show us what you've got and that you care enough about it. So when we're hiring, a big part of what we look for is we want people who are going to use the tools that they can get their hands on, people who can want to figure stuff out on their own and who can find ways to be creative. And that kind of stuff is really what makes people stand out. So when people send in, contact us via the website and put in a job application, all of our admin all receive that same email, and we're all going and checking out the reels. We're all checking out the sample work and all that, and it's you notice that cream rises to the top. When a conversation will happen, and honest, a lot of times Andy will then also be brought into the conversation if it's somebody that we think could be a good fit in that festival world as well.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting talking about reels nowadays, because when I was going through school in the 2010 to 2015, Instagram was kind of just popping off, right? It was just starting to kind of get going. And nowadays it's interesting that like everyone loosely in the general college age demographic have now grown up in the social media landscape where you're constantly showcasing your work, whether you think about it or not. So literally selfies, Insta stories, TikToks, those are all showcases of some sort. And it's interesting to me that like this is the first generation coming up that has been ingrained to showcase creative talent just inherently. You aren't necessarily, you don't have to be a cinema studies student or a journalism student or a marketing student to want to be able to put something out that you've been working on. It seems like everyone wants to do that now. So that's got its pros and cons, right? Because it means that everyone's doing it, so it's a little oversaturated, but also means that you have these natural ability to try to like understand what you should be pushing out to the world. And in light of all of that, especially in my world, which is very dependent on learning like quite a heavy skill set digitally, both in After Effects and in Premiere and in different editing softwares and things like that, but as well as just stylistically and creatively being able to compose interesting images on the fly in like a run and gun situation, as we'd say. It's still really helpful for you to have that reel. It's also pretty important to me that you you have an Instagram or something where you also have some of your work casually thrown out and less of a presentation way in totality, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Versus like individual things that you have done. And when I'm scouting for talent that we're trying to bring in, I'm starting at the reel and then I'm immediately going to Instagram.
Yeah. When we have our admin meetings and it's we're all sitting around on laptops and it's like one of those emails will come in with somebody looking to apply and you get to see everybody immediately, everybody's immediately going to Instagram or like occasionally Facebook, I guess, but just to get a gauge of who this person is. And so it seems kind of crazy, but like, that's why that's one of the first things I tell people. I'm like, clean your stuff up, clean up your socials. If you've got a bunch of inflammatory, things on there, it's not to say you can't, be yourself and all that, but if you're on there, saying, making a bunch of loaded comments, that's something that normally is a big red flag. But also, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a good way. Like we can normally tell pretty quickly if like, oh, this person has a good eye or they understand aesthetic. It's the one of our recent interns. We had gone to his Instagram and he had a bunch of really cool. I guess had done a semester abroad and had shot this like beautiful, just kind of like travel stuff. And it was just like the kind of thing that I do when I'm, traveling, where like I can't just be content enjoying the moment. I have to feel like I'm like making something or doing something. And, had some really cool work and didn't have a bunch of really nice, like flashy, like professional stuff like in his reel or anything like that. But the stuff that we saw, like, it was like, okay, this person clearly gets it and has an eye and cares enough about it that they're, doing this stuff while they're, on a trip. So,
right.
that side of it, I think, is such an important element. And uh, just we can tell too, it's kind of crazy. It's, I still am pretty involved in Lock and Keys socials, and I mean, it's nuts how often there'll be somebody who's been following us for a while and will comment on our stuff, or will, send a message or whatever. And I mean, there's a number of people that we, that are very, ingrained in our ecosystem now, that are just like people who are, just cool on, social media, and show that they cared about the stuff. And so we, it's kind of, funny how much you can, pick up and learn, and just, seeing how these things work and how companies operate. And so, there's a lot of that information out there.
Yeah. It just kind of floats around. But I'm curious, Kelvin. We saw your intro too. Just for me, I didn't notice Kelvin. He can't speak, unfortunately, but dual major, cinema studies and art. Very cool. I like that we've got a little bit of variety across the board here. How many of you all have you made any reels yet, in terms of just something to be able to look for internships or job opportunities? Do you all put anything together? I assume that you probably haven't done a lot of actual like video projects yet, right? Are you still kind of in the middle of building a portfolio up from schoolwork?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
boom.
there it is.
Okay. Yeah, I actually no, I haven't really done like a really anything like that, but yeah, I'm trying to get as much experience as I can from like filming through school, but I also want to try to like film by myself in my spare time. And I just been trying to find time to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, the you're in a great position usually in school. And I know that you're busy, you probably have jobs and a lot of things are taking up your time. But if you can find some free time to make something you just want to make on your own, honestly, that means a lot more to employers when you can
Yeah,
just show off passion projects that you worked on, because it means you actually care about this, right? It's not just schoolwork that you had to do and here's what I can do. So I love to hear that, because we
Yeah.
push that all the time. We do our own passion projects on the side of this to try to keep our creativity spinning outside of work zone. So that's kind of square one, is I would say starting to look at like you all going and just finding things you want to make. Maybe it's music videos with friends you have that are musicians here on campus. Maybe it is a short film. Maybe it's comedy stuff. The very first employee here had a incredibly inappropriate comedy skit series that we could not pull up from the internet, but he was out there making stuff. It was it was dumb humor, but it was
Yeah, and
creative.
he worked with us for 9 years before moving to Atlanta to work on narrative stuff. But yeah, it's and when I was at UT, I mean, I was constantly checking out gear and shooting bands, and the music stuff was always a big passion of mine, and getting to actually do it at a high level, and be paid money is nice, because
getting paid is nice.
yeah, there was a the you want to get money when you can, but also, I mean, again, so AC Entertainment is a local company. They're one of the founders of Bonnaroo, and so that's where our festival work kind of began. But I mean, it was about a year and a half of me playing basketball every week with a bunch of the guys who work there before I convinced them to let me shoot a concert series for free for them. And then I worked as a runner for shows at the Tennessee Theater and the Bijou, and I did so much free stuff until I'd kind of proven myself, and started slowly getting some paid gigs there for Lock and Key. And so while we don't hope that everybody has to go through that same process of like working for free or doing doing that grind, while it would be great if people didn't have to go through that, it's something that speaks to a lot of industry professionals, because not all of us lucked into the right first gig. And so there's a lot to be said about just a willingness to go out and shoot stuff. And I mean, if you're looking, it's like I mean, there's so many pretty places around East Tennessee. Get up early, get a sunrise, get a sunset, walk around with some friends, go on a hike, and just like shoot some pretty stuff, mess with the light, and just try things out, mess up.
My 2 years before I worked here at Lock and Key, the brief mini career I started before here, was a year while I was still in school, and then a year after school, I worked for the university communication department. So basically everything that athletics doesn't cover. So everything educational, everything marketing wise. And started a couple projects there that definitely helped build my portfolio. But also there's a lot of days where we were in the summer and basically all the students were gone. They just needed stuff for the social media feeds to stay active. So they'd be like, can you just go get your camera and just go walk around campus and find some cool, interesting stuff? And that was really formative for me because I would just get paid by the university to go make the university look good. And while I was lucky that that was part of my job, it was something that I would also just do for fun anyways. I had my camera, I'd walk around the fort, maybe it wasn't for UT, I'd even walk around Saturday night. Sometimes if I was going to a house party, I would even bring a camera and just, hang out in the street, get cool night shots, stuff like that. You can always, this day and age, be building up that portfolio and working on things that you think look cool. I actually learned a lot from, I dated a girl in the graphic design school, and they have a very structured, rigorous, like showcase regimen. Like they are constantly needing to create things that they can show off and critique. And I kind of learned from watching her and watching her class and her workload to do the same on my end, even if journalism wasn't quite as like technique and showcase heavy. It really instilled in me that I should just be out making things. And I mean, that's the basis for like the whole point of this talk, right? Is, or like what we're trying to kind of get across to you all is making things that you want to present to the world. That's the critical kind of first step of making these reels, making something to show off your talent. And I think it's pretty important across the board if you want to work in this video world to invest your time into making something that showcases your talent. I mean, it sounds like everyone here is in all kinds of different paths in terms of what you want to do and what you want to do in video or outside of video. But if someone comes into our marketing department with a video reel that showcases some of both their marketing things they've worked on, as well as maybe some social media campaigns, anything like that, we're going to walk away very impressed compared to just showing us screen grabs of Insta stories and stuff,
Yeah, and the kind of the origin of our marketing department, I mean, really, there was a time, creatively when I was so motivated by trying to make cool shit, like that was literally, it was like, I just want to make something that's going to look impressive and then, tell a good story. And then, as, we kind of matured as a company, you start recognizing it's not enough that it looks great. You want it to serve a purpose. You want it to be effective, content. Because, I mean, if you think about it logically, if you're making, you make a piece and it doesn't matter how amazing it is, if the client doesn't use it properly, or if, if it's not doing a good job of solving the problem that is being posed, then, it's not a great piece. And so I think that being able to, just more of a holistic approach to creating, things, it's a big part of what the industry is now, because there's, as we're kind of seeing now, it's like we just did a run of projects with HGTV, and the primary goal there is for those to be on TikTok. I think there'll be some on Instagram Reels, but they were like, we had to build out a iPhone rig. And so like, we literally had this like elaborate, like iPhone rig with like a Terra deck, so that, clients could view it. And we were literally being told like, this looks too good. It looks too good. Cause it's all about, they want stuff that looks real and genuine. And so, all these different areas are all kind of coming together. We have our marketing people, some of our designers are working on projects, for video and are doing some editing or some motion graphics. There's all these ways in which these roles are kind of, combining and working together.
Couldn't find the iPhone rig, sorry.
No, but, and there was a time when if you had told me we were going to build an iPhone rig and shoot something entirely on a phone, I, would have
slapped you?
Yeah. I didn't want to actually say that, but yeah,
it would have led to charges.
Yeah. But this is kind of the way that everything's evolving. So, I guess, we have a couple reels to kind of show you.
Yeah. These are just a kind of a couple variety of of what we're talking about when we say these like show reels and just demonstrating what you can do.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna start, and we've done some testing on this, so hopefully it's actually going to play properly. But so
I think you have to share your screen first with
yeah,
us.
yeah, no, I've got it all.
Okay, you got it already. Okay, all right,
Yeah,
all right.
no,
Sorry.
that was like my number one thing, because I remember we had done some some presentation with the marketing team like a couple years ago, and we quickly learned that all the videos we had locked and loaded were gonna not play well, and it was pretty rough. So this is not our most recent reel. This is the one before that. Again, we don't expect people to have a bunch of polished professional work under their belt, but this one, we really prior to that, we had done a bunch that were like pretty montagey and just kind of high energy, and here we wanted to sort of to show off our sound design and kind of pacing, and just sort of a nice intertwining of types of projects and types of clients, and just like find like creative ways to transition from one thing to another without really relying on a bunch of flashy tricks. The music was all composed in-house, and everything was done very purposefully.
Right. Yeah. I don't want you to like look at this and think like, oh man, I can't do this. I want you to think like the purpose. Yeah, the intent behind everything we're showing off, because that's the key to all of this, is like, what is the intent of what you want to sell yourself as, what you want to put yourself forward as.
Cool. All right.
Let's see if this will do it. Oh, is that working? Are you all seeing that?
Cool. All right.
Yeah, so that one, when we put it together, I mean, what are some things that stand out to you all in terms of like what we're trying to showcase with that reel? Yeah, you didn't think it'd be interactive. There we go.
To me, like, well, the state of Tennessee,
Yeah.
be more specific, Knoxville, Tennessee. But I saw some things in Sevierville and too. But yeah.
Yeah, variety of geography. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was probably stuff in maybe 10 different states, but it's a weird challenge that we're always kind of looking at, is that most people don't realize that Knoxville is such a massive production market, but we want to always feel local, always feel accessible to local companies, but we also recognize that it's the big companies, the big national companies that have more money and are willing to spend it. So we always kind of try and bridge that. We want to kind of have one foot in firmly planted in Knoxville, and one more nationally.
Right. Yeah. Anybody else? What do you all kind of stand out as? Right. We got Keith.
I think there was like a great sense of diversity, what you shoot. I've seen a lot of different events that are like they're different, but somewhat similar in the sense of like a lot of spectacle shots and like a lot of shots that make things feel more epic and more grand. Uh, and I think when you look back to like those events, like Bonnaroo, or like I think I've seen like motocross, like things of that nature. You always want those to feel more alive and bigger than what it is because it makes it more energetic for the next
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. It really it sells tickets. That's kind of what it gets to with all the event stuff. Is like we got to make it look amazing so that everybody that sees it wants to go. That's good to hear. That's kind of the main point I think of that reel in particular was to show once again that we can kind of do a bunch of different things, right? So we've got this live event coverage, and we've got kind of stuff that you could tell was like a whole thing that was unscripted, basically mixed with all of these projects that were heavily scripted, heavily blocked, heavily, rehearsed, lit. The audio's on point. We're trying to show that we can do this wide range of things, and we felt really good, especially about that reel. I think that really showcased almost that contrast, right? So that first sequence in the beginning is like high energy rock and roll, peaceful person drinking coffee in the morning, and then it's like high intensity action shot going down a mountain coaster in Severe Bowl.
Into as you're seeing a track of a first person shot on a coaster into a shot of a pinball machine. And
like match cuts.
that was a project we did for downtown Knoxville.
Yeah. So that's the big thing to me with that reel in particular. I don't know.
Yeah, and because a lot of our earlier reels, like I said, were a lot more montagey and were a lot more based around the music doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And so every time we're doing one of these, we just want to kind of evolve our show kind of where we are now, and just find a way to kind of reinvent the way we're doing it. So I will show you
real quick. Sorry, we have a question from Keith.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I have a question too after that. Yeah.
Real quickly, I was just wondering, one thing that stood out from the video you showed us was the car scene. I'm just wondering, like, what was it like? What was it like to get in that shot?
Well, like inside the car with the woman leaning back with the brochure.
Yes.
That one's funny. I can tell you, I was crammed into the back of that van directing with my cam up squeezed next to me. I would say we were not following seatbelt regulations to a T that day. But I mean, car shots are fun. That's a dynamic, like difficult problem, but they're fun to solve on set. So we knew that that's in a piece for basically a tourism piece for Visit Pigeon Forge
or for Gatlinburg attractions.
That is basically showing off a bunch of the attraction Gatlinburg. It takes a lot of specific small lighting in that car to make it pop right, because we do still have to try to light the faces up. It's not just take what you can get. And then also like trying to figure out in the moment what camera to use. But ultimately it was me and my coworker Doug just crammed into the back of that car, trying to get a couple different variety shots on that. And it worked.
Yeah.
We weren't on sticks in there, I think.
No, it was all it was all handheld.
I should know that. I directed.
But I think it's also it's one of those things where there's times where we do it the big fancy way, and because the budget can afford it, and then there's times where we do it the way we did when we were just trying to find a way to make the best work we could with what we had at our disposal. I used to have this kind of this thing I would always kind of talk about, where it's like you don't get an asterisk next to your work. I'd always be like, and especially, I mean, we literally came from the humblest of beginnings. We had no money to start. It was not my business partner and I, we had just precious little money and resources when we got it going, and everything was built off of the quality of the work, with finding those opportunities. And I mean, I talked myself into some pretty crazy jobs. I'm pretty sure that if Covenant Health and Ripley's aquarium had known we were working out of my little tiny guest room in my house, that we would not have landed the projects that we landed with them. But it was all just based on like they saw the work and were like, oh, this is great. And so, I always kind of talk about this asterisk thing where it's like, you look at that project and you'd be like, oh, that's really great. And I'd be like, yeah, and we did it with this budget, with this equipment, in this amount of time, with this crew. And it's like, holy crap, that is ridiculous, but it's like, you don't get to put an asterisk next to your work. So,
Yeah, unless I'm at a bar watching a game and then a commercial comes up and I tell everyone around me.
Yeah, you can't be everywhere that people watch your stuff to give
tough.
them real life insight. So,
Really
that's sort of a, I think it's an important lesson that, like, I mean, I can remember us kind of, we always had sort of a chip on our shoulder, and we're very much just, we'd see the people who, got a big, funding from their family or just had a bunch of legs up, and we were kind of like, we're just going to do better work. And so I think it's and then now we kind of blink and we're like, God, I bet there's a bunch of people who look at us that way. And, but, I think it all kind of goes to show that if you, if you're good at your craft, if you care about it, if you, give it the time and attention it needs, and, then, you can, the gear and the opportunities will come. But yeah, you kind of got to put in the time and get there, on your own. So
That's a great point. Kelvin, did you have a question too?
Yeah, I just wanted
Okay.
to say something about
Yeah.
the sound design, because I remember you saying something about how earlier, when you made earlier things, like the music kind of carried it, but I would say like the sound design on this one was like very I think it made everything like coherent, because like I don't like, did you like fade the sound to like go with each like clip, because I kept hearing like the screaming from like the event, the concert events, and it made like the more like subtle, more like, like the coffee shop or things like that feel more connected with the concert, because it's like, even though these are like two different events, like they're similar, and like, yeah, and it went into more that we can be diverse in what we shoot. And I like really like that, because like sound is like one of the things that I always like struggle with trying to make, like, I don't know, it's sound is so hard,
Yeah,
so
it is.
I really enjoy it.
Sound design is the glue for most of this stuff. It's what really makes almost any project we have from pretty good to great, usually, because it is tricky, but you can really sell. You can sell a lot. I mean, it's all about your senses, right? And with video, you get two of them. You get sight and sound. So if you're not really paying as much attention to sound as you are sight, then you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, I look at like there's like these certain steps along the way where like we've kind of gone to that next level. And, one of the big ones was when we started really paying more attention to music and sound design, and really, just trying to be way more deliberate and understanding how, these swells and these, using the emotion created by the music and by the sound design to, make people feel things and to help, tell the story better. And so, Andy's amazing with the sound design work. And I think if you look at our festival stuff specifically, so much of that has improved by just like these small touches and these things that really like just kind of, really kind of take it over the, over that line into, being way more impactful.
Yeah, I think I'm too humble to say I'm great at it. I think I'm serviceable at it. And it took me a while to get there. I started at a zero-sum game, and I would almost never roll sound design into our projects. And it's funny how like the little bit that I am able to do that I do feel comfortable with already does make them like to your average user that isn't editing every day. People are like, wow, what's going on there? So glad you noticed. What was your question, Devin?
I thought you said then.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, and I know you guys have another reel to show, so I definitely want to get to that. My question was around, I think it was Andy on the left who mentioned the variety piece and how difficult that can be to show. And then I was also thinking about some of the students in the room who may have specializations in certain areas. And so do you have any recommendations or guidance around, as they're building their first reel, what types of projects to include to highlight that variety, but also maybe some specialization or special skills they might have.
I feel like with that in mind, maybe we should show them Grayson's, because
Yeah.
we're gonna try to show 2 more if we can.
Okay, cool. Let's do it because
Yeah.
we're at 4:46. So let's do that.
Yeah. So
one of them is yeah.
Yeah, so one of them is an editing reel from this guy Grayson Horst that we've been working with a lot lately. He went to the NYU film school and is a Tisch and is kind of one of these freak, brilliant, like super humble, super sweet, just like he just sees things differently. But 26 years old.
Yeah, he's directed a full feature-length film and he's edited it and he's done all this work, and he is the embodiment of like, he is, I hate to say grinded, but like he is grinded. Like he has really thrown himself at everything he's done so far, and it really shows.
Yeah.
He's one of the most talented editors I've ever worked with.
Yeah, and we're hopeful. He's actually expressed some interest in moving down here and working with us for a while, but
Yeah.
we started working with him in ACL Fest last year, and then just finished another run of those this, I guess, 2 weekends ago. But
with all that in mind, this reel specifically is about like a particular thing.
Yeah, and he's this is his editing reel, but I think you'll see how this is another one of like probably my biggest things to we look for is like something that makes you stand out, that's something like really creative. And honestly, like it doesn't have to be humor, but humor works very well on us specifically. But stuff that's going to really like be like, oh, that's super unique and different. And so I will show this, but you can kind of get a gauge of what we're talking about there, and just finding clever ways to kind of get it out there. All right.
When I think about editing, I think about what a juxtaposition of images can make you feel. Create contrast, find a connection, follow movement, action, reaction, setting your pace, create tension, and release. Allowing your important beats to land with impact. And crafting your story. It's that simple.
Yeah, so clearly packs a lot of punch with a pretty short amount of time. And I think particularly that's one of the stronger like specific skill set reels I've seen in a long time. I think it's really cool that he kind of gives a little bit of his own ideas of theory and like what you're doing with editing as a storyteller
while he demonstrates them,
right.
And in use
them off real time.
And you can see too, like it would have been, like he's coming from more, that film world, but he found enough ways to mix it up. And I think that, you'll notice too, where, he's, and you'll see this a lot where, people kind of in the bottom might like kind of credit what the project is and maybe say what role you did on that.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is really nice, especially, there's some things where it's, it's all you. And then there's some things where you work on it with a team. And I think it also kind of shows, we always kind of want to know like, oh, well, what, you see something impressive, you're like, wait, so what did you do on that though? Like, well,
right.
It's like, oh, I was a PA. It's like, okay, well, it's
right.
It's like, here's a Tostitos commercial, and it's like, I was a PA on it. But putting that in your reel is probably, not a necessarily a super honest thing to do.
You're doing. With like when we get a director's reel, we watch it knowing that this is kind of presented as like, I oversaw this, right? Like this is the team I oversaw. When we have a sound design reel, which is occasionally happens, it's probably still video forward, but it's mostly about what you're able to do with sound mixing and sound editing and the editing and VFX. It's really popular to have a VFX reel because we work with VFX artists that can just do things that we can't necessarily run on the fly, that we need to hire. and they will show their graphics capabilities and like what kind of crazy visuals they can make. And also importantly, what brands they've done it for. Because sometimes we'll get a reel that's kind of impressive, but it's all personal work. And sometimes we wonder, like, why haven't they actually shown off that they can do this in multiple sectors? And so I would say whatever your skill set is that you're trying to hone in on, once again, just think with a purpose when you're showing off your work. Like, what shows off that work? What really spotlights what you want to do well and pushes it forward?
Yeah, and just because of course, as you can probably tell here, Andy and I can talk about this stuff all day. It's but just like if there's any like main takeaways, and just before we show anything else, just because I want to make sure that we get this out there, if there's like any main takeaways, first and foremost, less is more. Don't overstay your welcome. Like, I would rather see 30 seconds of great stuff than like a whole bunch of fluff. Like, I don't want to, I'm not saying you can't go over a minute, if you have the goods, but less is more. I'm also gonna say, like, it's a similar theory to what you're gonna see when you're any stuff you're making for social, or it's you don't have that much time. You want to win somebody over right away. So other huge part is lead off with your best stuff. Like, suck them in right away, your best stuff. So because I'll be totally honest, there are times where somebody sends me a reel and I don't watch the whole thing, and maybe I give up halfway, or but like, if I only, or I get sidetracked with something, if make sure that your absolute best of the best stuff, the most memorable things, that should be what you lead off with. That should be the beginning of your piece. So less is more. Don't overstay your welcome, and lead off with your best work. Make sure that if they don't watch the whole thing, they've seen enough that they know it's great. And there's been awesome reels that I've not watched all the way through, because I'm like, okay, this person obviously gets it and is super talented. So those are the two big things. And just as kind of just an overall thing too, it's thinking about, like, I realize you can't make a specific reel for every job you're looking for, or every client, but like thinking about who is your audience, and make sure that you're kind of tailoring your reel to that. And so if you were trying to get if you were trying to hit us up because you wanted to work on festivals, then sure, show a whole bunch of music stuff. But if you wanted to work with us as a whole, the company, I'd rather see a variety of different types of projects. So those are kind of like the big big things to remember.
I think my only hot tip is don't be boring. I mean, this is a visual medium. You can really entertain, and you can really do some work with this. Don't be boring. If you look at it at the end of the day, you're like, the technicals are here, and this shows off what I do, but it's not entertaining. It ain't gonna fly in this marketplace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did anybody have any questions about Grayson's? Well, yeah. Everybody feeling Grayson's. All right. That's great.
Yeah, and again, I don't think you need. I'm just looking at Devin's question here. I mean, we do most of our editing in Premiere. I know there's people who do Final Cut and Avid. Yeah. The specific program isn't really important. And you know what? At this point too, if somebody wanted to make a reel and do it in TikTok, we would. I
mean, CapCut it's not what I would choose, but people are making stuff in CapCut. I mean, people are making stuff in Canva and these like apps that basically facilitate some of the work so that it's more open to everybody.
Yeah. And as much as I personally tried to avoid TikTok just because I don't need another thing that's sucking up a lot of my time, like, it's something that is very important to a lot of clients, and having people who specialize in that and who are, know what they're doing in that program. It's super valuable. So, but I think also knowing how to, jump between different worlds, I think can be, incredibly valuable. But, again, if somebody were to send us something that was built like, built entirely in TikTok or something, like that would be one of those things that would stand out to me, that I would probably watch the entire thing and be impressed if they were doing it in a clever way that really showed an understanding of how these things work. Because, we're while, you know, so many of our people have like worked here since they got out of college. We have like a ton of people who literally, you know, were interns and are still here, you know, many, many years later. You know, Andy, you know, is a great example of that.
I stuck around.
Yeah, you know, we're always looking for, you know, young perspectives, and you know, people who understand that different side of things, because, you know, yeah, there was a time when I was really stubborn and wanted to be like, oh, this isn't film, this isn't cinema, this isn't cinema, you know, like, but I think we've kind of like learned it's, you know, it's there's so many of these people that I used to freelance with who are kind of the old guard of Knoxville and who are unwilling to, you know, give advice or to show me how to do things on set and whatever, and we're kind of dicks about it. And you know, that those people, and a lot of those people who didn't evolve and didn't keep up with the technology and didn't, you know, constantly like grow in their skills, like those people don't work in this industry anymore. And people who have that old antiquated mindset of, you know, I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to keep all this knowledge to myself and I'm not going to be a good, you know, part of a team, like that stuff does not fly in our world at all. So
I keep telling Feliu he needs to start doing TikToks with his Fortnite dances with his kids, and he hasn't really jumped in there yet. But
no.
I guess if you all want,
Here,
is this over at 5 theoretically?
We're gonna go back to the main room. So if you guys have another,
yeah, let me show you our
Yeah.
most recent reel, which of course we will likely be updating.
Yeah, I just want you all to think about this in terms of how it's different from the last one, because we do need to keep fresh whenever we do new iterations, and yeah, just kind of thinking in that realm.
And getting younger, there's no time to waste in conversation. Kings and queens of a suntan generation, generally working hard and needing up a paid vacation. Around the sun 100 times and ain't one explanation. Sun soaks in us, trying not to get caught. What's the use in being what I'm not? Well, let me tell you something, when you get to my age, love is all you got, so I mean it when I say that. Honestly, I wanna give you every little part of me, and if the tide comes back and takes me with it, I hope you know it's not love if you can't let go. And I know why I'm never gonna give you only part of my ever loving life, and if the stars don't fade over paradise islands, never gonna die if I do without trying.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at these days. Just hopefully this has been helpful in showing you all like what we like to show off and what you all might look forward to in terms of.
Yeah, and you know, feel free to, you know, hit us up, Andy at lockandkeyproductions.com, Andy V at lockandkeyproductions.com, or, you know, hit us up on Instagram. And yeah, happy to, you know, throw some advice your way, look at some of your work, you know, just do what we can. So we you know, we want to see, you know, we're kind of tired of hearing about what a great program Pellissippi has, and we've had a lot of those kids and a bunch of them work here, but like, you know, we're Vols all day, so we want to see you all succeed and provide opportunities to you all whenever we can. So yeah, appreciate everybody you know, joining. We'll I guess
the time, you know?
Yeah, we'll I guess see you over in the other room.
Yeah, how does this
Yeah.
work?
this was great. Just everybody leave room, and it should give you the option to go back to the main session. So
Cool.
thank you guys so much. This was great.
We got
everybody.
it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Come back. Let me just close all rooms. Did I mistakenly close your room, or you guys are done?
We just came back because I thought you wanted us to.
Okay, yes, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah.
be sure that I didn't.
We've
kinda
all
like-
made it back. I think we have one student who maybe did not make it back to the main room.
Okay.
I was about to make the greatest point ever, and then you interrupted me, and I forgot right now. So
I did not. I did not.
I'm just messing with you.
Oh my gosh. But I'm sure that great points were made.
Oh yeah.
It's so hard. There's so much. You guys just barely touch the surface, right? There's so much we can talk about with reels, and I mean, there's so many design decisions, and so we really appreciate you helping us and helping our students get started on this.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Andis. Maybe we will do a personal training, Devon, so we can teach our students.